We're going to take a look at how to rebuild the Novak 4PHD. Take it apart, clean it, put it back together. You're going to need some Novak Pro Lube, a brush, and 2 wrenches, a 2.0 millimeter and a 1.5. You start out, brush all the big stuff off the outside of the motor. Make sure that you got most of the hard work done. Usually you don't do this over the area that you're going to work, but I already cleaned it off. I start out by going around, loosening all these screws first, and then spooling them off one at a time. Now you're going to want to mark this. There's 2 different size holes on the front of your motor. So if you're using certain holes, make sure you mark which way this is so you can put it back. The easy way is to just take a silver Sharpie right there, an X-Acto knife maybe even, and just mark the edge of it. If you pay attention, you'll be able to tell as well. Get the screws out. Nothing exciting here, normal stuff, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. There's 6 of them. And then what I usually like to do, slide this guy off, set it aside. You can inspect the fronts and the back side right away, get the dirt out of there as quick as you can. We're going to do that in just a second. There's on the back side, there's 3 more screws. These are the 1.5 wrench. So you take those out also. Now this motor has been in my test truck for 50-60 battery packs at least, I want to say. I haven't taken it apart completely yet. I've poked around in there and looked at it to see what was building up, and that's it for the most part. I mean, it's dusty, but nothing major in the way. You got all the major parts out, rear end bell, front end bell. You're going to want to be real careful. You're going to probably have to push it down a little and slide it out real slowly. The slower the better. And get that off. Set it to the side. If there is any dirt on it, use a piece of tape and push the tape, peel it off, and get all the surfaces, bearings, all that. Give it a wipe down. Set that aside where there's no metal. They're very strong magnets, and they will pull things from far, far away and get stuck to your rotor. Set all the screws aside, and the lower bearing and all this dust in here needs to get taken care of as well. So again, you dust all this off, not over your workspace ideally. Loosen the screws here. These are basically same screws that hold the rear end bell on, so you don't have to be too worried about getting them mixed up. It's nice to have common hardware. That screw comes out. Everything slides out together, and there you have sensor boards. So if anything gets damaged, you can actually replace these sensor boards, which is really nice. So I get this guy, I just dust it off, not over my work area. Get all the dust and dirt out of there, and then if it's real gritty, you can spray it out, but for the most part, I just add 1 little drop of this wonderful Novak Pro Lube, and that was even a bit much, so I'm going to wipe some of that off. And then front end bell, I'm going to do the same, wipe it off, not over my workspace. Use a little towel here, just take your edge of the towel and give it a wipe down, get all the big stuff off, and then brush, brush, brush. And then same thing again, 1 little drop of oil just at the inside seam of that. Give this guy a little spin so it works down in there, and let it sit. Once those are done, you're going to let them, just give them a roll with your finger, make sure everything's okay. Brush all the dust off of this guy. Again, you don't want to do the brushing of the dirt right over your workspace. Or if you have a little compressed air, low pressure compressed air, you don't want to be blasting these things with high pressure. And a lot of times air compressors and stuff, if you don't have a moisture trap in there, you're doing more harm than good anyway. So same thing here, brush all this guy out. You can run your finger up in there to get the big dirt out. If you've got the blue paper towels, you twist that up. Same thing, put that in there. I'm going to brush, 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 get all the big dust out of there. One thing you'll notice I'm not doing is using spray solvents. We are not fans of spray solvents. They're generally more harm than good. They push stuff where it doesn't need to be. They're for cleaning parts, circuit boards, things like that, but not things that are kind of you're using functional type of thing. So we got that all taken care of. Check the bearing. Bearing feels wonderful. Bearing feels wonderful. So we're going to start reassembly. I start where I ended with the sensor board. Nothing too complicated there. Oh wow, lots of towel in there. We don't want that in the motor. So That's that. This guy's ready to go back on. Now, much like we do the other motors, I like to put the rotor in first. So we got this guy nice and clean. Very, very slowly and gently, you're going to slide this in there. It's going to want to suck itself in, so you got to grasp it real firmly and let it go slow. The rotors have a plastic protection on them, so you're not going to hurt the Kevlar wrap too bad, but you don't want to lean on it. This is all tabbed, so it only goes together one way. The opening goes towards, obviously, the wires. I like to push the rotor out so that I can get the bearing seated first and then slide it all back together. It pretty much keys back where it needs to go, but you do have to kind of line the screw holes a little bit right there. Now that that's in there, you can go ahead and snug these screws back in, get that out of the way. Because this thing's mounted circular, you don't have to be too super careful with there. It centers itself for the most part. The can all stays together nicely. But it's good to just snug them up, then go back around and do a final tighten just for normal mechanical correct execution, so to speak. Snug those guys down. Then what I do is I make sure that all these screws are in here. You don't have to. You can do this any way you want. Screws out, screws on, but it's just, I've done it a few times. Slide this guy on, and my big hole was down there. Get the screw head lined up, and then the inside surface is actually got a race that seats inside the other. So it's just a matter of getting it to kind of wiggle back down in there. It can be a little tricky. The screws are actually making it harder to do. So once I get these guys snugged down, it should be okay. Just use the two opposites each other. There we go. It was just hung up on the threads a bit. So get that down there. Go around, snug these guys all up again. It's not a final tightening, you're just kind of getting them snugged up. And these motors have no shims in them, so we don't have anything to worry about there. It should all just go back together correctly. If there are any shims, make sure that you put those back. And when you get done tightening it all together, the most important part of any time you put your motor back together is to make sure that there is just a little bit of in and out movement of the rotor's shaft. Because if there's not, what you do is you put a side load on the bearings, and that can be pretty bad for them. So you want to make sure that you check that as well. And we do have just a little bit. It just needs to tick in and out a little bit. So there you have it, folks. Take it apart, put it back together, clean your Novak 4PHD.